Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your host, Tait, for this session. And my guest for this edition of Media Watch is Michelle Materre. Michelle, you've been here before.
Yes, I have.
Give our viewers a little bit of your background, short title, history.
Sure. I am a professor of media studies and film at the New School, and I also have a radio program called Creatively Speaking on the air. It's also a film series for independent filmmakers around the diaspora.
And you have been a media consultant?
For a few many years.
Yes. So basically, you know, at Media Watch, we take a look at what's been going on, how the media has been handling it, and good, bad, or indifferent, and stories that they haven't touched on, we will bring to the viewers' attention. But for my money, over the last, 10 days, there's been a seminal moment in the history of this country. And for me, it's a confluence of all kinds of things. But it still boils down to that one bugaboo that's been bugging this country from its inception, and that has to do with race. So in the context of at least 3 stories, maybe more, let's see what we can do to sort of examine where we are in this country. Before the shootings in Charleston, the big story was Rachel Dolezal. And within the context of the Rachel Dolezal and the shootings, there was an announcement by Donald Trump that he was going to run for president, seeking the nomination on the Republican Party. So let's touch on all those. So why don't we start with the Dolezal story first, just because that actually gets to the heart of the seminal problem.
That's true. I think Rachel Dolezal has so many layers to it that is very much at the heart of what this country has been dealing with or not dealing with for many, many years. I think the attention that it brought to the public is indicative of the fact that we do not talk about these issues enough. And so at any provocation, this becomes a big deal.
Yeah, and in this particular instance, because of the nature of the story, and I don't think too many people are not aware, but to recap, a young lady by the name of Rachel Dolezal had actually been born of white parents, and for the most part of her growing up years, she had lived as a white person, white female, and then after college and after going into the workplace, she just opted, and I say opted, to decide to become an African American by choice. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The parents produced a birth certificate, and when she was questioned by a number of reporters, her definitive. Give me a little bit on her non-definitive answer.
Her non-definitive.
Yes, give me a little
bit
on that.
Very non-definitive answer. And actually, she says she identifies as black, not African American.
Right.
It's funny because I think one of the things that people fail to understand about the history of this country is that there are a lot of people walking around here that could be called white who are black, and who are black who could be called white. We've been passing, quote unquote, for many generations since before slavery, but especially since slavery. And as a result, we're still not dealing with the issues that bring that to the surface. That why did she feel like she had to have this connection to black people? Is that what she felt she needed to do the kind of work that she was doing? Was it simply an opportunist position? When it was convenient for her to be black, that was why she chose to be black. On the other hand, I have another perspective that says, if you have a history and you know your history as a white person in this country, and you decide that you don't want to be associated with the tragedies that have been inflicted by white people upon people of color in this country, I wouldn't want to be white either. So if she is really a committed person to the black cause, which she seems to be in terms of her work that she has done, which has totally gotten undershadowed and underplayed in this whole thing, then I think I too would choose to be black.
It's interesting because even within the black community, there's a big split on what were the reasons behind this choice that she made. Was it an attempted deception? Was it a true identification? And it's gone back and forth in any number of ways. One of our colleagues who tends to feed lots of aggregated stuff to us for Media Watch, Rafiq Kamal, forwarded an opinion piece that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had written. Yes. I think it was picked up by either Truth Out or Reader's RSN News, I'm not sure which one. A number one of the aggregates that we tend to touch base on when we do Media Watch. And Kareem hit on the point that you talked about, someone's background, their track record, what they've done, should not be negated because of a perceived deception. He did say the deception is not acceptable from my interpretation of the article. Right. But the fact that she was interested enough to do as much good in and for the black community, president of the NAACP out in the state of Washington, I forget it was Spokane. Yes,
Spokane, Washington.
And on a civilian complaint review board or something to that effect, to make sure that the police were treating African Americans and other people of color right. A lot of that has gotten overshadowed and negated because now there's a perception that she may have done this just to get ahead career-wise. She may have done this because she felt that she would progress further in life as a black female as opposed to as just a mediocre white female, whatever the reasoning. You know, there are all kinds of layers.
There's all kinds of layers. And not to excuse what she's done by any means, because I think there's other issues there. Her personal, you know, frame of reference, her family dysfunction, or you know, all of those things that have gone on that got her to the point where she is now. However, I do think that her intentions were to do good work on behalf of people of color in this country, and that has totally gotten, you know, somehow waylaid because of this issue.
But which actually goes to the heart of what we're trying to discuss, this overarching thing about race in America. Because a lot of the comments were, this woman has to be crazy to want to identify as black, okay? Yeah. So and then in surfing the web, looking for a lot of social media feedback on these three topics we're talking about, I came across a story that you know, one of these catchy things, 25 celebrities who married normal people. That's the headline. Who married normal people. Okay. So I said, okay, celebrities aren't normal, but there was the catch picture was Ellen Pompeo and a black male. And I don't follow that stuff too much, even though I should, because it's part of the media. I do media watch, right? But I usually follow news, public affairs. So I wanted to check, well, what do they mean by normal? Right. So I'm trying to do this stuff, but before the slideshow would come up, here comes these comments, which caught my eye immediately. But the one that jumped out at me was, well, heck, what do you mean normal? Ellen Pompeo married a black man. Is that normal? And I went, okay, here we are. This is race in America. She has to be abnormal because as a white female, she married a black male. So I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm going, we still have a major problem in this country when it comes to race, whether it's white women with black men with white women, black women with white men. It's just, but anyway, not to digress, even though that's not a digression.
No, it's all part of the same issue. It's
all part of it gets to the heart of what the bugaboo, what the problem is, because as we've known, read over the years, race is an artificial construct.
That's correct.
In fact, there was another Jabbar article that dealt with media and not calling it race and not calling it a hate crime and the whole bit. And But within those two contexts, he was talking about a number of studies that talks about the fact that prior to the transatlantic slave trade and I guess the late Middle Ages, there was no such thing as race in the discussion. Most languages didn't even have a word for race. And so this is an artificial construct that got propagated when folks wanted to make other individuals less than human so they could justify enslaving them. And because North America has bought into that with such a vengeance, especially in the United States, it has colored everything that's evolved for the last 400 years. So I believe the one-drop rule originated in the United States of America. Of course, the rest of the globe decided they were going to go along with that charade. But
well, and we have a perfect example of that happening right now with this ethnic cleansing going on in the Dominican Republic of Haitians that, people of Haitian descent that have been living in the Dominican Republic for generations. And, you know, this is just a testament to the impact that the imperialists have had around the world. You know, this is a vestige of colonialism, to still feel that people from the same island are different people and to have one better than the other. It's like they did such a great job of brainwashing us all over the world that this is still the impact, and now we're dealing with this consequence.
And the interesting thing about, to stick with the Dominican Republic, you're talking about one island divided with an artificial line anyway. Okay. All the people on the island are different shades of black, brown, and white. Okay. Across the gradations of color. Now, in one language, they have a gazillion, just like in Brazil, a gazillion terms that indicate what variation your skin color is. But on the other side of the island, you're just brown, or you're just black, whatever you are. And you from French descent, whatever. But even back on that side, they were talking about quadroons, octoroons, whatever, because it's part of that divide and conquer mentality. And it's not what quadricentile of black blood you have, it's what quadricentile of white blood you have. And so this whole artificial structure that has been imposed on much of the globe is still grounded in trying to differentiate people from blackness and whiteness.
Absolutely.
It's
and I think that the tragedy in Charleston is another indication of the fact that people assume that, you know, words have no meaning. Here this kid has been hearing this racist rhetoric spouted since he was born, I'm sure, and now it's being handed to him on a silver platter by the media. I mean, you brought this article about Ann Coulter, Donald Trump. These people are spewing racist rhetoric, and it's turning into racist violence.
See, the interesting thing is about the media coverage of all this, because social media went haywire over Rachel Dolezal. The mainstream media went kazooie, or whatever you want to call it, over Rachel Dolezal. The young man said he did his research and he published his manifesto, and I forget which Citizens right-wing, far-right website he went on. But my point is, he didn't have to even go to one of those websites to find that toxic soup that he swims in, because
it's on the page of the New York Times.
Look, the back end of March, to reference Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter being a conservative right-wing, the guy for the Daily Beast. This is another aggregation, folk. The Daily Beast, the guy by the name of Lloyd Grove, has a column called Open Fire, and his headline on the 26th of May was, "Coulter hates the, quote, browning of America. The motor mouth claims," this is his phrase, not mine, folks, I'm quoting, "the motor mouth claims the U.S. is being ruined, by an influx of immigrants from Latin America, Asia, and Africa." So now, here is a supposedly well-respected, doesn't get much respect from me, I say that bluntly, folk, because she's an idiot and what she spews is totally crazy, but She has a number of book contracts.
Absolutely.
Every one of her books goes to the top of the New York Times bestseller list.
She was even on Bill Maher the other night.
And actually, Maher hates her politics, but they're great friends. And I'm just saying, you know, I don't know if I can be friendly with people who spew poison left and right.
Exactly.
And so the opening, I'm quoting from the middle of the article. In Nigeria, this is a quote from her next book that's coming out, or in her interview, everyone is a criminal. Now, this from a well-respected spokeswoman of the far right. In Nigeria, everyone is a criminal, Coulter claims. And continues, but we take more immigrants from Nigeria than we do from Britain. And so she's up in arms, because by taking more immigrants from Nigeria instead of Britain, we're browning America. And a later quote, her latest book, Adios America, and there's a long subtitle about how we were being ruined and blah, 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 by these brown people coming in. Coulter expands on her belief that when new arrivals from foreign climes are not busying themselves with browning the country, collecting welfare payments, and swarming to the polls to vote Democrats into office, they are committing Medicare fraud, child rape, gang rape, honor killings, and a host of other un-American activities. This is from this interview that this guy has done with this woman.
And then it was just exacerbated by Donald Trump.
All right.
When he announces for president, I mean, the first things out of his mouth is all Mexicans are rapists. It's like, are you kidding me?
Gangsters, rapists, and
this is somebody running for the presidency of the United States of America. Hello.
This is where I really, I cannot comprehend. See, these people get up on this platform and they say these crazy things. And somebody like this 21-year-old kid hears this, and this toxic racist stuff that these people are spewing just becomes part of the norm. It's acceptable to them, and they think that, yeah, this guy's a respected billionaire, maybe. He says he is.
Oh, please.
He's a respected, quote, politician.
Imperialist.
And in his announcement to capture the Republican nomination to be president of the United States of America, he maligns a whole group of people and thinks nothing of it. But what
and I think it was the next day that the Charleston murders happened.
Right behind it.
2 days, a day later, yeah.
But he felt safe to say that because Coulter had already spewed that stuff 3 weeks earlier. And guess what, folks? From being fifth in the ranking polls, he jumped to number 2. He went from little or nothing, without a blip, he went to number 2 right behind Jeb Bush.
Yeah,
so what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the acceptableness of that kind of language in this country?
That is very frightening to me. And
we are totally
we're in a really bad place.
Yeah, we're in a bad place.
Really bad place.
We're in a bad place.
I wanted to just read a couple of things from Dr. Robin DiAngelo from an article that she wrote, White Fragility, Why It's So Hard to Talk to White People About Racism. And she has these challenges that she calls that are what is really at the heart of why it's so difficult for white people to talk about racism. And I just wanted to mention a couple of them because I think they're so relevant here. One is, and she lists, it's like 12 things she lists here, but one is that a fellow white not providing agreement with one's racial perspective is a challenge to white solidarity. So who is that? Rachel Dolezal. How dare you?
Right.
How dare you want to be black?
Right.
You're basically copying out on the white race.
Yes, you are.
You're showing a lack of solidarity. Another thing that she says is that being presented with a person of color in a position of leadership is a challenge to white authority. President Obama, how dare he? How could he possibly be considered an authority? He's just a black man. So it's these 12 things that she mentions here that are so on point. I just recommend people to take a look at this article. I posted it on the Creatively Speaking Facebook page. White Fragility, Why It's So Hard to Talk to White People About Racism.
Let's talk a little bit about the media coverage of the Charleston shooting and the immediate arrest of Dylan Roof, however you pronounce his last name. Another one of our resource people that Media Watch relies on heavily, Pearl Duncan, the author, genealogist, historian, expert. She mentioned the fact that there are a number of people in the black community who actually have that last name of Roof. And there are a number of people in the white community who have that last name of R-O-O-F. And it's been causing all kinds of havoc for these people because here's an avowed racist terrorist. And we're going to get to the media coverage of terrorism or not terrorism. and so what he has done reflects on them because he comes from their lineage, by hook or by crook, however tenuous or extended it might be. And that is a very interesting take because people in this country forget how mixed up this population is.
That's exactly
you got these people way over here in the far right who think they're pure as the driven whatever, right?
Nobody is pure.
And nobody in North America, not pretty much the rest of the globe, very few, if you can find any, are really, really pure. And so the reaction just within the familial group name of Roof has been an interesting story that's worth other media looking into and actually reporting on. But
well, and we've had several independent films recently that have exactly depicted the fact that there's a black man and a white man with the same name in the same town, and yes, they're related. A black woman and a white woman, the same name in different towns, yes, they're related. So it's like, yes, this is the history of the United States. It's not anything new. It's not something that's foreign to where we are, but we still don't want to admit to it.
Well, part of the reason, as you and I both know, is because this country never tells history or its history properly.
That's right.
The reason we did that I'll Be Free to Travel Home, and I thank you again for being one of our early distributors and taking it out into the public, is because that history, when it deals with people of color, just doesn't get told, and it's not told properly. Like, interestingly enough, the New York Times had a front page above the full story on last Sunday. When this airs next Monday, it'll be Sunday a week ago, to that effect, not the previous day Sunday. And the reporters were talking about the fact that Charleston, South Carolina is like a hotbed of Confederacy and the whole bit, but that black church has had a long history, and so they were talking about after the Civil War, blacks migrated from these segregated southern churches to set up their own because they were tired of discriminatory treatment, and that structured the face of religiosity in America. Wrong. 1796, Philadelphia, that first AME, Bishop Allen and those folk. New York, a few years later, the John Street Baptist Church down in Lower Manhattan, got tired of climbing ladders to go into a segregated balcony, moved over and set up their own churches. This stuff, you understand?
Absolutely.
We know this history. We have put this out there. Then I'll Be Free to Travel Home, EBTED.org, www. Look up your history. It's American history. That's part of the problem.
Absolutely. This reconstructionist history has been detrimental to not only to black people but to white people. It's really created a lot of the issues that we're dealing with in this country because people don't know the history. They take everything at face value, exactly what you showed us on the face of the New York Times magazine, New York Times newspaper today, which is also why we have to look to alternative media. We cannot only depend on the New York Times. We have to look to the Huffington Post, to the Daily Beast, to the Daily Cause. You know, we have to look to films. I wanted to mention 3 films that are out right now people should see. A film by Stanley Nelson called Black Panthers, The Vanguards of the Revolution. Amazing film, the most comprehensive history of the Black Panther Party I've ever seen, and it's extremely well done. Everybody needs to see it. Another film called Terror. It's a documentary by Lyric Cabral and David Sutcliffe, which documents black independence and former Black Panther Party member turned FBI informant, and it talks about how Black men, especially Muslim men, are targeted by the FBI as informants because they know that they can get things out of them. And it's an unbelievable film, unbelievably upsetting as well. And 3.5 minutes, 10 bullets, the documentary about the killing of Jordan Davis. Those three films people need to see. Please go out and support.
Yeah, we're going to be out of time in about 1.5 minutes. We didn't get to the fact that Representative Clyburn talked about the fact that the history of Charleston is not properly told, but Black history and Black people are as endemic to that city. We know, historically speaking, that Blacks outnumbered whites in Charleston, South Carolina, in the state of South Carolina for years. And this is one of the things that triggered this young man's rage. And so he said, "You're taking our country, you're raping our women, you have got to go." So anyway, I think we're about out of time. Michelle Materre, thank you for being our guest on Media Watch.
Thank you.
This has been Media Watch. I'm Eric Tait, and we'll catch you the next time.